Welcome to One Shots, a condensed version of our normal show where instead of 2 or 3 of us are talking about a movie we've recently seen, it's only one of us. My name is Vaux, and today I'll be giving you my thoughts, feelings, and review of 2019's We Summon Darkness. We Summon Darkness is a half-baked horror film that premiered at Mammoth Film Festival in the February of 2019 and was released digitally and on demand in the United States in April of the same year. The film stars Alexandra Daddario, Keean Johnson, Maddie Hasson, Amy Forsyth, Logan Miller, Austin Swift, that's right, the younger brother of Taylor Swift, and Johnny Knoxville. This was one of those movies that Natasha threw in her watch list on Netflix after watching the quick preview that Netflix gives you when you hover over a show or a movie for a period of time. And I'll be honest, when I watched it and I saw that Johnny Knoxville was the TV preacher and he was saying that the devil is bad and how religion will save you and blah, 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 I was completely sold. How bad could it be, right? I mean, Johnny Knoxville's in it. He's never done a bad movie ever in his career, right? But seriously, I like Johnny Knoxville, and no matter how many shitty movies he's done, I'm always going to be a fan of his. So I was sold. I wanted to watch it, and we sat down and did exactly that. The movie follows Alexis Butler and her 2 friends Val and Bev after bringing a group of guys home from a concert that they just went to. And I'd like to point out that the plot summary for this movie on Wikipedia starts with the fact that the group was going to a heavy metal show and a milkshake was thrown at their car by a passer van. And maybe that event is the thing that brings the group of guys and group of girls in this movie together. I still found it kind of funny that this was the scene they chose to highlight as the plot driver, instead of just saying the 2 groups met at a concert. My notes weren't as extensive for this movie as it was for the first one shot that I did, called Monsters of Man, but I'd rather sit through the entirety of that movie again instead of sitting through the opening credits of this movie. There was at least 45 seconds, maybe a minute, of just dead silence in opening credits. What the hell? So we start with the group of girls at a gas station, which is the scene that we see in the Netflix preview where they're buying a bunch of junk food and getting gas. And I guess this also sets up for the plot that's going on in the movie, but I didn't read anything about this. I didn't even read the synopsis before we started, so I didn't really know where it was going. All I knew was that it was in the 80s, the Satanic Panic was in full swing, and Johnny Knoxville was on a TV behind the cashier preaching about how Satan is the devil, and I mean, I guess obviously he is the devil. I don't know where that came from, but that Satan's bad and that, Jesus saves and blah, blah, blah. So as I mentioned, they're going to a heavy metal concert, leaving the gas station to go there, and they get a chocolate milkshake tossed out the window of a van that's passing onto their windshield. And I'm sorry, but the only thing that's coming across my mind at this point is, why are they throwing a full milkshake out the window of a vehicle? At least finish it before you litter. That's just a waste of money. When they get to the show, they meet up with the guys who did it, have a few beers, rip a few joints, and then they dance strangely like no other metal show I've ever been to. At this point in the film, I started to tally how many times Satan was mentioned in the movie, and I recalled the first 15 minutes or so to see if I could tally a few things back up. It just seems a little try-hard, especially for the fact that they are at a metal show in the 80s. We get it. They continue to mention Satan a few times, some big-name metal bands as there's bumper stickers, and they even have a discussion later on around a fire. And it just, I'm a metalhead, so that could be a factor into the annoyance here. But I think that everyone should just start taking a drink every time they say Satan or mention a metal band. The Satan count is 7, and that's just the first 15 minutes. 7 times. The slew of bad acting and try-hard additions to the plot continues as the group realizes that the girls weren't lying about drugging their drinks during a really great game of Never Have I Ever. And they get tied up and put into the den of Alexis's well-off father's home where they went after the concert. The dumb one of the guy group, who's actually Taylor Swift's brother, as I mentioned earlier, decided that it'd be a great idea to run his mouth way too long and gets a knife to the neck. And this is all a result of him learning that the girls were going to kill them, not because that they're performing a satanic ritual, but as a cover-up to make it look like the Satanists were actually doing all the murders that have been mentioned throughout the movie, and it's a ploy to get the church more money. Are you putting the pieces together here yet? Because I was. Bev, who is the new one, and I'm doing air quotations, the new one to the group, is clearly panicking internally at this point and decides to pull the girls out of the room and convince them that she wants to be the one to kill the other two guys. While they're out of the room, Alexis's stepmother comes home for a quick pick-me-up, which is basically just her snorting cocaine in the upstairs bedroom and grabbing her passport. And they mention a divorce, as she clearly knows that her now ex-husband, which is Alexis's father, played by Johnny Knoxville, is a whack job, and she wants to get the hell out of there. Noticing that the girls were acting a little weird, she investigates the house. Right after mentioning that she called the cops because there was a van in the driveway that she didn't recognize and the house lights were on, she goes into the den, finds the body of the first murder victim, and I forgot to mention, the other two were tied up, and then they escaped when Bev pulled them out, and now they're locked in the pantry to, prolong their death, as we know that that's coming. Both the stepmother and Alexis are freaking out, yelling at each other, and Alexis decides that it's a good idea to stab her stepmother, which brings us to the worst death scene of the movie, as she kind of just, falls down and instantly dies. Yeah, there's a little bit of blood, but there's no, panic or screaming. She's just, I'm high on cocaine, and now I'm dead. And note there, I said the worst death scene, not the worst acting. While locked in the pantry, one of the guys, who's played by Logan Miller, and he's been in a whole bunch of movies compared to the rest of the cast here. I mean, maybe not Johnny Knoxville, but the other people, they just haven't been in a whole lot. This guy's been in a lot of things from what I've found. He's bleeding out because he got cut in the escape, and while they're locked in there, they get to decide whether they need to fight or flight, I guess, and they decide to flight as they smash some wine bottles together, they're going to use those as knives, all while fighting off insecticides that the girls have sprayed into the room, and a hairspray flamethrower from underneath the door. And I know I'm bouncing around here a little bit, but I hope this makes it a little bit more interesting to listen to, because watching it was not interesting at all. While torturing the guys in the pantry, the cop that was mentioned earlier by the stepmother, because she called, shows up, and not only does he violate a few laws by forcing himself into the home after being told that everything was fine, he tops the list here as the worst actor in the movie. I mean, his death was more believable than his acting in the 5 minutes he was on screen. The movie continues to be a back and forth play between the guys trying to escape and the girls trying to kill them. And then the preacher, Johnny Knoxville, shows up and casually just shoots Logan Miller's character while he's trying to escape the house and telling him that the girls are going to kill them. All while he goes inside, drinks a beer, eats a cookie, and listens to the chaos in the rest of the house just while standing in the kitchen. Val and Bev are duking it out in the basement after Bev tried to use a boat motor that she got from the garage earlier in the film as a weapon. I mean, okay, first of all, that thing's probably heavy to haul around. I've never lifted or moved around a boat motor, but I can imagine that to try to swing it around while revving the engine and using it as a weapon is probably going to be difficult. And I'm a scrawny dude. I'm not real big, but I look to be about the same size as the girl who plays Bev. So I can only imagine that thing would be very heavy and very awkward to swing around. There isn't even any sound when the motor is off screen. Like, it just boom on screen and then cues the sound. It just made it seem really corny and unrealistic. And if you haven't been around a boat motor, I guess that would be kind of believable. However, all of the ones I've seen, no matter how big or how small, they're all loud, incredibly loud. So you would be able to hear that coming into the house. Not only hear it, you'd probably be able to smell it, because those things stink. Alexandra Daddario's character, Alexis, is upstairs hunting down Keean Johnson's character, Mark, and he's just trying to get the keys so he can get in the van and get the hell out of there. The fighting of the two groups continue. Val and Bev are still downstairs, and Bev gets her hair lit on fire by Val. Cue the really bad CGI effect here. Have you ever heard of stop, drop, and roll, by the way? Hair goes up real fast, but it can be put out real fast, too, and her whole head just gets engulfed in flames as she runs around the basement screaming. And then we never see her again. Upstairs, Alexis and Mark are continuing to fight, and then Alexis finds out that her dad would just wanted to kill her all along because she's reckless and makes him look bad, and it was just part of the ploy that they get, this group together and make it look like the Satanists killed them. And then she gets tossed out the window by Bev because Bev comes running upstairs, and while Johnny Knoxville's character is attacking Alexis, he gets knocked out by the boat motor, and then Alexis is like, yay, we're friends, and then gets all crazy and turns on Bev and gets tossed out the window. Ugh. Bev and Mark ended up making it back downstairs to find that Alexis is dead on the pavement. They get into the car, start the car up, go to leave, find that Alexis survived the fall, even though her head looks like it was split open in the scene before on the pavement, and proceed to run her over with the car, which is the only logical thing that happened in this movie. I mean, yeah, psychopath standing in front of my car, I'm trying to escape, I'm running that bitch over. They continue to go to a gas station, the one that's from the beginning of the movie that we see in the Netflix preview, so if you want to know what I'm talking about without watching this thing, watch the 1-minute preview on Netflix. It'll show you everything I'm talking about. They get medical supplies, drive off into the sunset, and happy day. Oh, and by the way, we find out near the end of the movie that Knoxville's character, which the preacher Butler, I think his name is, as it's Alexis's dad and Alexis Butler. I'm putting 2 and 2 together. We find out that his plan goes on unscathed as he frames his daughter for basically becoming victim of a satanic ritual. And I don't know if it was more of my daughter was the Satanist doing the ritual, or they came and did the ritual on her. I don't know. The whole movie's corny as hell, has a boring plot line, mediocre acting at best, and it's quite a shame too. I expected a little bit more initially, but I guess that's what I get for assuming. So here on Pick It and Flick It, we rate movies 2 ways. Number 1, we pick it or we flick it. Pick it for good, flick it for bad. And then we also like to give a scale on 1 to 10 to kind of see where we sit, just to help you out a little bit more. I explain it all the time as we can have a flick movie where it's not worth watching, but it's actually well done. Or we can have a pick movie, which is worth watching, and it could be a complete shit show on the production end. So take everything we say with a grain of salt. For me, 1 out of 10, I'm giving it a 2. It's not very well done. Yeah, I guess the scenes are put together production-wise because there's only a couple locations. And yeah, sure, you can easily get 30 or 40 teenagers for a concert scene jumping around, pushing each other in a basement. Or a rec hall that could be, rented out perfectly. Flick this thing right out the window. You do not need to watch it. I didn't gain anything from watching this. I didn't say oh wow, that actually told a great story. I should pass this on. Like a lot of the other classic horror movies we've seen where it's innovative for the time that it was being made and innovative for the storytelling. This was made in 2019 with very little gore, no scares whatsoever. It was more of a psychological, ooh, Satan's bad thing. If you like what you're hearing on the show, please give us a like, a subscribe, a comment. We want to continue to do the regular shows that we're doing where all 3 of us, or Luke and I, sit down and discuss movies we've watched, but to keep the content flowing, to keep it active, as Luke does his show, Confused Reviews, and sometimes, as of right now, it takes a big period of time for him to edit that stuff together. So we're not always guaranteed to get an episode out every week, although we try. So hopefully this is going to offset those times where we can't sit down and record a full episode together, and we can just do it one shot, one opinion, and be done. Thank you so much for listening. This is Pick It and Flick It podcast, One Shots, number 2. My name is Vaux. We'll see you on the next one.